In this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how to handle rejection. And this is gonna apply whether you are working in sales or if you're dealing with rejection in your everyday life. And you wanna make sure you watch this video until the end, because if you're someone who has ever dealt with the fear of rejection, or you wanna say something but you're afraid of how the other person is going to respond, well, I'm gonna show you exactly how to deal with that fear, and I'm gonna show you how to exactly handle rejection when the time actually does happen. What's going on, everybody? It's Patrick Ding here. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, turn on notifications if you want to see more videos like this, and let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so the first thing when it comes to rejection is overcoming your fear of rejection, right? Here's the thing, like before you even face any type of rejection in your life, a lot of times we might stray away from opportunities because we're afraid that someone's gonna say no, so why even bother asking? So what do you do to make that fear of rejection go away and find the courage to say what you want to say? Because you never know, something great might happen, whether it's generating a sale or finding a significant other or whatever it is, right? Let's go ahead and deal with that now. So the first step of dealing with rejection is you first want to accept it, right? So when it comes to acceptance, there's two things you have to pay attention to. The first one is you accept the fact that you are afraid, right? There's no need to beat around the bush or hide the fact that you're afraid of someone saying no. Just accept the fact that you are afraid, and that's just how you naturally feel, right? That's not a crime to feel afraid. I feel afraid all the time, but the important part is finding the courage. The second thing you need to accept is, if you do ask that thing, right, and somebody does actually reject you, well, what's the worst that can actually happen, okay? Whatever that thing is, let's say you're trying to generate a sale and somebody says, no, I don't wanna buy, then, okay, that's the worst thing that will happen. They'll say no. Now, do you accept the fact that if that does happen, will it be okay? Are you going to die because they said no? Is it gonna ruin your life? Probably not. So if that's the case, you got to accept whatever comes, and you accept the worst case scenario. Because if you're willing to accept the worst case scenario, then you start removing that fear. Because if you think about it, a lot of times fear comes from the unknown, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But if we imagine, okay, this is the worst thing that can possibly happen, and we're okay with that, well, suddenly that fear is not that scary anymore. And once you accept that fear or that form of rejection, the next step is to think about, okay, if I do this thing and I get rejected, this is the worst thing that will happen and I'm okay with it. So what can I actually do in this scenario to make my odds of rejection less? What can I do to make the situation better so that the other person will say yes instead of no? And now you're coming up with creative solutions to actually get the job done instead of being afraid of just asking, right? Most people, when they want something in their life and they're afraid of rejection, they'll just say, oh, I don't want to do it because I'm afraid that this person's gonna say no. Okay, yeah, I totally get it. I empathize because I used to be like that. However, if you start using this methodology of acceptance, understanding what the worst case scenario probably is, and then doing things to actually make the situation better, you're not just afraid now, you're not just paralyzed by fear, but actually you're more like, okay, tactical. What can I actually do to get the yes? And now you start going into a situation with confidence, right? Because instead of being afraid all the time, now you're finding the courage to fight your fear and to do the thing that you want to do even though you're afraid. If you're able to do that, suddenly you start building more courage and you start having more of the guts to actually get the job done. So now let's talk about what to actually do if you do get rejected, right? So now we're gonna talk about what you need to do once you actually do get rejected, right? So once you, find the courage to actually do the thing, well, not everyone's gonna say yes. So if they say yes, great, you don't even have to worry about anything, right? But if they say no, how do you deal with that pain? How do you deal with the feeling of being rejected, right? I know when I was in high school, I was very shy, quiet, awkward. I was known as a nice guy. And when I try to ask, let's say, I remember I tried to ask this one girl to, some kind of school dance, and I wasn't even courageous enough to ask the person directly. I had to ask a friend who would then ask that person to see if they want to go with the dance with me. Obviously, they're gonna say no if I don't even have the guts to ask them myself. Totally understand. But during that time when I was like, 16 years old, I didn't have the tools or the mindset to really deal with it. So anytime I got rejected, I would always be like, oh man, this person is a mean person, they're not good, and this and that. And I would just make all these excuses to why that person said no, and I would never look at myself for the answer, right? But because in reality, it was because I didn't even have the guts to ask the person in person myself. Right? And that was the problem. And maybe if I did, they would say yes. But because I had that attitude of blaming other people when things don't go my way, I didn't really improve as a person until I realized this. And then that's when I really started to make those changes in my life. And so the things I've learned over the years of taking more responsibility instead of blaming others when it comes to rejection is that the first thing you gotta do is understand why someone is rejecting you, right? So in the case of me asking a girl or asking my friend to ask a girl to see if they want to go to a school dance with me. In that situation, the first thing you gotta do is be empathetic, right? If I was the other person and I realized that someone wanted to ask me to a dance, but they didn't even have the courage to ask me themselves, I'm not gonna go with this person. What the heck, right? That's so weird. So empathy, right? That's the first thing. Why is it that they're saying no? And let's say a business example. Let's say you're selling a product and service, and you got the best product and service in the game, but this person still says no, and you're thinking, oh my God, this guy's so stupid, or this girl's so dumb that, this is so good for them, why aren't they buying? But instead of blaming the prospect or, who you're trying to sell to, think about it in their shoes. Why are they saying no? Maybe it's the way you presented it. Maybe the price is too high. Maybe there's some kind of objection that the salesperson didn't cover. Or maybe they don't feel confident that if they buy it, that they're gonna get the result, right? So there's a lot of reasons for why someone may not buy, but if you're not empathetic to understand their situation, you'll never figure it out and you'll never get better as a salesperson, for example. So for that key lesson, understand why the person said no and really have empathy, right? Don't just blame them for saying no. Really look at it from their shoes. And if you are them, would you also say no given this current situation? Because if that's so, you start figuring out what's working and what's not, and you start switching it up. And so for the next time, when you do ask that thing, whether it's closing a sale, for example, well, you're more empathetic towards the other person. You switch the way you're, saying the things that you're saying and the value that you communicate. And then from there, people will start saying yes because you're not blaming the other person anymore. You're taking responsibility and you're making changes based on the market feedback. And the next thing I have for you when it comes to dealing with rejection is that you gotta accept the fact that rejection is part of growth. Now, I know people who, they're good at what they do and they always stick to their comfort zone, right? They only wanna do something if they can be the best at that thing, and they don't ever wanna be in a situation where people say no to them or they look stupid and they don't want to try anything because they're afraid of looking dumb and they're afraid of rejection, okay? So sticking within their comfort zone. And that's exactly what you don't want to do, all right? Because when you are doing what you're comfortable with, especially if you are good at those specific things, well, you can just continue on in your life, never trying new things and just doing the things that you always known your entire life. And you don't really grow that much as a person because there's nothing to really give you that slap in the face to show you that, maybe you're not as good as you think. And so a lot of times when you're dealing with rejection, you're probably doing something that's kind of difficult to do, or it's difficult relative to you and you've never really done it before, or you haven't had much success. And when you start dealing with more rejection, you start to understand why people are rejecting you. And from there, you can make changes to yourself so that you increase the chance that someone will say yes. And by doing that, by default, you are growing as a person. So when you are thinking about rejection, it's not like, something that should be so painful. It's actually a blessing in disguise, because rejection, yes, it is painful, but that pain actually helps you discover what areas in your life that you are lacking. And then once you fix those pieces and people start to say yes a lot more, well, you by default become a better person, or become a better entrepreneur, become a better salesperson, right? And that is the process of growth. And the way I like to live my life is I like to put myself in very uncomfortable situations where I gotta start from scratch, and I'm usually the dumbest one in the room or the worst one in the room. And by doing that, it makes me feel like a beginner, right? Because I know what I'm good at. And if I make videos, or if I'm doing sales, or if I'm coaching people or doing any public speaking, I'm very confident in my skills to communicate, right? So I can always do that, no problem, with my eyes closed. But when it comes to, let's say, I remember one time I tried tried to learn how to play soccer, right, football, and I tried to learn how to play goalie, and I was terrible at it, and I was playing against people who were playing all their lives, and I'm trying to be the goalie, and I'm letting all the goals in to the goal because I suck. And you know, that's a very humbling experience because it really broke me out of my comfort zone and made me look at things in a different perspective, and it made me want to try harder, not only in being a goalie, but applying that into my everyday life, right? And so, you know, tying that back into rejection, well, you know, rejection and failing is a part of life. Like, people saying no is a part of life. If you're not good with, let's say, the opposite sex, or, you know, whatever you're into, right? You want to ask a girl to dance, but they don't like you, or you want to ask them on a date, but they say no. That's a part of life. But when they say no, you think about it. Why did they say no, and what can I do to help them say yes? Same thing, I mean, sales, dating is actually kind of similar in that regard, right? So let's say you're selling something, the person says, no, I don't want to buy, Patrick, I don't see the value. Okay, well, what do you need to see for this deal to close, right? If I offered this, would that be something more valuable to you? They might say, no, I don't need that. Okay, well, what do you need to see? And then maybe they tell you what they need to see and say, okay, fine. If I do that for you at this price, are you willing to close the deal with me? Are you willing to work with me? And they might say yes, right? And so by getting a lot of no's, you start figuring out what people want. And when you figure out what people want, you start getting more yeses, and suddenly your momentum snowballs. You start selling more, you start getting more results because you're okay with the rejection, right? And it's only when you are okay with rejection that you're able to maneuver these situations in this way, because instead of feeling so hurt when somebody says, no, Patrick, I don't want to buy, and you're like, oh my God, they hurt my feelings. Instead of feeling like that, it's just like, okay, you don't want to buy right now, but what would it take for you to actually work with me here? And once they start telling you, like I said again, you know, that's when you start building that momentum and you start getting more results. And so with that said, those are gonna be my best tips when it comes to dealing with rejections. Let me know in the comments, you know, what you thought of this video and what was your #1 takeaway. And you know, if you wanna learn more about sales and you wanna maybe start your sales career or accelerate it if you just started your sales job, I actually got a free training link in the description, so make sure you check that out to, you know, really take your sales game to the next level. And if you made it this far, make sure to give the video a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, because I'm gonna be dropping new videos every single week. With that said, my name is Patrick Deng, and I will see you in the next one.